Right. Hello, everyone. I'm Aubrey Abbott Patterson. I'm the president and CEO of the Hutchinson Community Foundation, and I'm really glad that you chose to spend your lunch hour with us, learning about our new initiative, something that we're working with many partners to do across the county, and we include all of you as interested participants and community partners, and we're glad that you've shown up today to do this. The new initiative is called Reno County Love Where You Live. It's a community empowerment initiative, and we're going to tell you all about it. But first, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to just make sure you know who the Hutchinson Community Foundation is and why we would launch into an initiative like this right now. So since 1989, Hutchinson Community Foundation has been inspiring philanthropy, leadership, and collaboration, all for the purposes of strengthening our county, Reno County, and all the communities within it, however you define community, which might be your town, but it might also be your neighborhood or your school community or church community. There are lots of ways to define community, and we work as hard as we can, striving every day to help make this place an even better place to live and work and play too. We all want to play. So as we live out our mission, we're also striving. I think I'm on the wrong slide. We're also striving toward a vision that you can see there on your screen in the upper left-hand corner, something that we double down on every day and believe can be true for us, that we have a vibrant and resilient Reno County communities where every person has the opportunity to thrive. Our board of directors, many of whom are on this call, help us set that strategic vision and mission, and then to also really dig into what are the values that our community foundation lives by, as board, as staff, working with community partners. So I want you to look there in the middle at those three statements in green text. The first being that we strive to unite people and build trust among residents in all that we do, and never to do anything that would divide people, but rather to bring them together. And we do that by honoring varied perspectives and life experiences. And we always want to promote transparency, trustworthiness, and inclusive decision-making whenever we can, even if that means challenging a current system, even if it's our own, which sometimes it needs to be focused on ourselves, right? How can we create more inclusive decision-making in our county and do it in a transparent and trustworthy way? We're also striving to empower local people to address our most pressing challenges and to improve the livelihoods for those, especially for those who are the most vulnerable. We do that by encouraging gifts, charitable gifts of all sizes. I think sometimes the big gifts are the ones that get the most attention in the media and from people around town, but this is a community foundation, and we are really here to inspire philanthropy, whether that be $5, maybe $5 a month, or $500,000, right? We're a community foundation, and all of those gifts matter, and we work really hard to make sure everyone knows they can be part of making this community better through their local community foundation. We also encourage experimentation and believe that the people who live here in our county have the answers and the wisdom to make progress on our most pressing challenges, but also to drive us toward a shared future where everyone's thriving. And then that third value there is that we work really hard to be exemplary stewards and community partners, the go-to source for philanthropy in Reno County. And we do that by building open and honest relationships with people. We want deep relationships. We want them to be open and honest. We also work to invest wisely, both for a social return, trying to move toward the mission and the things that make this a great place to live, but also for a financial return, because that's important for the amount of money that this community foundation can give away over time, and also give away in the future, give away right away and then in the future. That financial return does matter to us. And I think most importantly, we never want to take for granted the resources that have been entrusted to us and the relationships that we've built over time. So at the bottom of that screen, you'll see the 3 long-term outcomes that we are working toward, not on our own. None of this happens on our own. It all happens with community partners and donors and volunteers, board members and staff. but we're working toward these three stated long-term goals: a strong, diverse, and inclusive local economy, healthy, connected people and neighborhoods, and a place with a culture of shared ownership, pride, and belonging. And I think that all three of those come into play with what we're going to talk about today with Love Where You Live. But the third one to me is the most interesting right now: creating a place with a culture of shared ownership, pride, and belonging. That really speaks to the love, right? Love where you live. So before I turn this over to Mary Grace Clements, who's going to speak to you next, I want to ask, why is it important? And you're going to have to come off of mute for this, but why is it important to love where you live?
No one wants to lead that. It's not just me. This is a question for all of you.
Yeah, Mary Grace is the next presenter, but I am looking at all of you. And you know that when that question's posed to me, I had to give it some thought too. It's okay, but I hope somebody will jump in. Why does loving where you live matter?
Eventually you're affected by it. It's whatever you put in, you're eventually going to receive back plus more.
Yeah.
I think it allows you to set down roots and help your community to grow.
Right. Thank you.
I think it's a very large aspect of our overall health. If you don't love where you live, you're going to experience a lot higher levels of stress, and it's just going to be an overall an unhealthy experience. So loving where you live has huge tack-on effects for our own health.
I agree.
If you know where you live, that you do a lot more work and you're not looking for a return. You're looking at a long-term investment.
Loving where I live means I'm engaged because it's a positive environment, and I am encouraged to be engaged with my community and beyond.
Great.
I would
Thank
agree
you.
with what everyone has said. And then I would add, we're raising our children here, and the hope is that our children come back here and we get to have them so that they see that we love it, they see the benefits, and they want to come back so that I can have my babies here even when they're grown.
think
If you
that's
love where you live, then that means you believe in the work and the people and yourself, and it's a place where you want your family to be.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you everyone for chiming in. I think those are all great answers, and I'm sure there are other answers out there that are just as important. We believe too that loving where you live is really important, and we want more people to love Reno County, because then they're more likely to get involved. As Lynette said, they're more likely to serve others, more likely to take care of their place, whether that's their individual place or taking care of, a larger community. There's so many reasons that loving where you live makes individual lives better and makes all of our lives better as people pour into the community. Like that's what several of you said. So thank you for that. Mary Grace, I'd like to introduce you before you begin, but you're going to be up soon. I'd like to introduce Mary Grace Clements, who is a board member for Hutchinson Community Foundation. She is also the chair of our Strategic Impact Committee, which helps set the strategy for Hutchinson Community Foundation and also makes many of the decisions about how our unrestricted fund, the Fund for Reno County, invests across the county in form of grants. Recently, Mary Grace has finished or is coming close to finishing her stint as our interim city manager. And we thank her for the time she's given to fill the gap that our city so desperately needed between city managers who've been hired by our council. So Mary Grace, thank you for that and for all the ways you serve the Community Foundation too, in addition to the community.
Thank you very much for the introduction. It's been an honor. It's an honor to be involved in the Community Foundation. It's an honor to be a part of the city that I truly believe in all of the focus and the energy and the positivity that we're moving in the right direction, and just excited for the future of what we're building here. The generational decisions we're making now for the future so your babies and your children can come back. So I'm excited about all that work. What I'm really enthralled at this whole new step here with the Love Where You Live, because as I've been in the city, it's very evident to me that a city can't do it alone. That it takes every quadrant in this region, it's every small town, it's everybody contributing to the region, because that impacts everyone. And that is the mantra, and that's the focus that we have. So the timing of all this is absolutely perfect. And the slide, as you see here, that the research says that the rural communities do thrive when you have these things, collaborative leadership, and when you have a decision-making body that has people who have lived possibly in other zip codes and things like that, and learn to come back and add it to that leadership. Have a balanced representation. It's very important that there's a balance between men and women. You want to have that balance, to have different viewpoints, because we're all motivated and have different factors that we lead by, and have all voices of all demographics present is vital to making sure you're moving the community and your rural areas together as one unified area. Committed citizenships, and obviously community vision and action plan. The things that all of these things are going to be essential when we've started to create what we want the rural communities, how we need these three components to help them thrive. So in our view, these are the things that are really going to make your community thrive. We go to the next slide. One of the things we want to make sure everybody's aware of, that there's a lot of movement happening in the community right now. There's lots of surveys and lots of resident engagement communications that are out there. As you'll see on here, we have the county housing assessment coming out. It's starting starting in June. Food assessment is out through the health department. We've had assessment for the community health. We've had childcare studies, the ARPA. There's been a lot of activity. There's been a year-long process with 308 school district, engaging the public in lots of different ways. And it seems like we potentially could be inundated with that, but we really want you to recognize the fact that we're going through this process. And what we're going to tell you today about is we want to engage people to really find out how people feel about their community. It's not laser focused about housing or food. This is about where you live, where you rest your head every night, and how you feel about where you're choosing to live. We want to understand where they feel special about the things they have in their towns, or through their leaders, what their leaders are doing that maybe is moving theirs in a positive way. We can learn from some of that. We want to know why people feel attracted to their community. We want to better understand that, why someone chooses to live in Nickerson or Haven. What's special about that, and how they have hope, and what they think about the hope for the future of their community. So that's the data that we're really striving to capture. We think with a lot of the different surveys, if you look at them, they were really laser focused in one area. And we want to have a broadband discussion with the folks to understand what it is that is important to them, what makes them special, what are their leaders doing that really makes them feel connected. And that's what we're striving to capture in this Love Where You Live campaign. We go to the next slide. I will tell you that saying, I just don't think you can have enough data. The thing that's important about the data and what we're striving here is we have to know where we are. We have to have a starting point. We have to have a baseline. And all the data is like a shared language. And it's how we're going to be able to tell where we're making progress. It's having a baseline of knowing where we're starting from, but also how we're moving things, where we're putting our energies. Is it giving us the results we expect? And that's what's the most important thing, is for us to collect this information and be able to look at it so we can judge our progress going forward, because that's what we want to do over the next 3 years. This is a 3-year initiative we're launching into, Love Where You Live. And so the information is vital for us to know where we're at now. And I don't have a great introduction, because everyone I feel has very firsthand knowledge. I'm going to kick it over to Terry to actually launch the Love Where You Live initiative that we have. And Karen, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Right, thank you, Mary Grace and Aubrey. I have the pleasure of being the Director of Strategic Initiatives for Hutchinson Community Foundation, which means I'm always thinking about how do we position the Community Foundation in a way that's going to help our partners, our people, our community, and Reno County reach that long-term vision of a thriving and resilient place for all people. We've been feeling kind of this brewing over the last few years, this need to dig into people's hearts, that sounds bad, to touch people's hearts, pull out what they love about our community and really help build this sense of ownership, pride, and belonging that Aubrey spoke to, that is one of our long-term outcomes. So I'm super excited to announce this, tell you all about this today. I do want to acknowledge we have more of our staff on the Zoom today, and members of our Strategic Impact Committee and our board that helped inform what this initiative is, as well as many partners who have also contributed to informing how we got here. Again, like Aubrey said, we want this to feel like the community's initiative, and we hope you feel excited about it like we do. So our purpose for the Love Where You Live initiative is to provide Reno County communities and the county as a whole with data and a process that will empower residents to make positive change and boost community pride. That's what's going to drive all of the different parts that you see here, and the structure that we're building around it. So as Mary Grace said, this is a 3-year initiative. This is maybe what sets this apart from some other surveys that happen. And they're a one-time snapshot, and then the work happens, and then hopefully there comes another time where the community gets another chance to share their perception or their sense of progress on an issue. The community health assessment and community health improvement plan is one of those that does do every 3 years, renew the process and check in with people. This one every year. Okay, so we are launching now the community survey in June and July, which is the first step of this process. Second step back next in September and October will be community gatherings. We'll then move into kind of activating residents around their priorities and helping them collaborate around projects that will make progress, and then funding them on the backside at the end of the year. And again, the concept is that we're going to replicate this process for 3 years in a row. The power that we see in this is that hopefully residents will share their voice. They'll participate in making sense of what the community collectively says. They'll participate or at least stay curious about what projects come out of this data and the dialogue. And then we'll do another checkpoint the year later. And so hopefully they will start to see actual real-time progress from year to year based on what actions are being taken locally. So I'm going to walk you through this first step that launches today, the survey, so you understand what we're asking, why, and what it's going to look like in the end. I think there's a kind of a not so subtle eye roll whenever somebody says, we're going to do another survey. And I understand that. I feel that sometimes myself, we can get surveyed out, but what's the value in it? It really does give us the data to benchmark. It gives us that snapshot in time of what people are actually feeling in a quantitative way that we can track from year to year. What we are excited about with this process is that we are going, and I'll talk more about this in a minute, we're going to dig into community specific and area specific data and reports so that we can look at what's happening in South Hutchinson versus what's happening in Buhler, and see what's common across the communities in Reno County. The other opportunity we have here with this process and the partner that we've chosen for this work is that this work is being done in other counties in Kansas. So over time, and actually this year, we can benchmark our communities and our county to at least McPherson County Community Foundation. They're a year ahead of us. They started this last year. And Western Kansas Community Foundation is also doing this with a much larger region, but we can start to relate communities to each other based on data. We have that multi-year tracking process, as I said, and then we have this common data language. We can point back to where did we get the information to drive certain actions, and then we can use it as the common language in our communities. So, as I said, we're going to have 8 reports at the end of this process. This is what the survey is informing. We've broken it down into 7 regions in Reno County. Every square inch of Reno County is covered in some way. Hutchinson will be the main report, but it also includes Castleton, Willowbrook, and the Highlands in that area. South Hutchinson, Nickerson, and Buhler will get their own reports. Haven and Yoder as a kind of bigger western or eastern Reno County area, the area surrounding Pretty Prairie, and then generally the area that is considered the Fairfield School District. The reason we had to do this was because of population size and how much data we can depend on for results. Because Hutch, South Hutch, Nickerson, Buhler, and the Haven Yoder areas collectively had more than 1,000 population, we can do those reports. So just know this is going to be a tangible outcome. We will have reports that I'll give you a preview of here in a minute for each of these 7 communities and regions in Reno County. Plus, we will have our own report for Reno County as a whole. On the far left, you see what are the pure facts about our community. So when we get to this report, this benchmarking report, there will be the facts about population, the demographics, education, what's the snapshot of some economic factors, our poverty data, our housing data. That we can pull from, the main, census data, American Survey data, local data, that are just the facts. The middle column is where we can't pull that from data. We have to create the data. How do people feel? What are their perspectives about their communities and these different areas of what's going on in the community? We want to know how people feel about the economic confidence, because I think we all know that what the data says doesn't necessarily reflect how the people feel about a community. And as Aubrey kind of drew out of us a little bit earlier, how we feel about a community influences how we show up and how we even interpret the facts. So that's the value of the survey. We want to get a sense for people's perceptions of local leadership, community engagement, what signs they want to see in terms of community progress, priorities, and how they will know that progress is being made in the community. And then again, on the far right, you can see we will be able to tell with these reports that are published every year how we are comparing and how we relate to each other, and from year to year and from community to community. The survey is available now. If you go to renosurvey.com, I think Wendy's going to type in the quick link there if you want to just click that link and hyperlink over. We have an online survey in English, and there's a separate version of it in Spanish. So there are 2 different links. But then we also have a PDF version, both in English and Spanish. It's the same thing, just basically a paper copy, because we know that some people are going to prefer that, and some areas of our community and county are going to need paper surveys. And so we plan to have paper copies distributed in certain locations like libraries, senior centers across the county. But we will also make them available. If you would request them, we can print them for you to have on hand. And we'll just be clear that in the end, they all need to make the completed survey need to make it back to our hands here at the Community Foundation, and we can input the data. On the right is kind of a one pager that we can put up and in a frame up next to the paper copy so people know what we're talking about. And so that will be, you'll start seeing those around the county. We intend to close the survey around August 2nd. That's a kind of a goal date. However, we know that's going into Emancipation Weekend, and there might be some other activities, opportunities are a little bit later than that, and we'll be open to keeping it open as needed to make sure that we reach the people and the demographics that we need to reach. And just to give you a kind of a peek at what the survey is going to ask, this is a snapshot around asking people's local community perceptions. So we're asking these kinds of questions, you know, and asking people to rate them on a scale of 0 to 7, 7 being, you know, this is absolutely true, I strongly agree, to 0, not at all. So again, you can see by the way that these questions are being asked, we're asking people their own personal truth to kind of answer, how do they feel at this moment? What we don't want to capture, what we hope, I guess, is that we don't get a snapshot of everybody who, you know, at this point in time says, I do feel a strong sense of belonging in my community. Because we know that's not 100% across the board today. We know there are people in our communities that don't know if they belong, that don't have a place, that don't have a community within their community. The more accurate snapshot we can get of that, the better idea we have of how much work we need to do to make that true for everyone in the end. Another part of this is asking people, you know, what's their sense of understanding of the direction that the community is going in? Do they believe or do they know that there is a plan? Do they have some sense of that direction that the community is going in and what their place is within that? So that will be really interesting to capture. There's also a section about current and future economic perceptions. So again, this is asking people currently, what do you feel, what do you think are the business conditions in Reno County now? And what are your expectations in the future? And then for the community priorities and indicators, we ask this 2 different times. We're going to ask this once, first for your community, however you think of your community. So at the beginning, it's going to ask you which of these 16, 17 communities in Reno County do you most associate with? Let's say I say Castleton. If I say Castleton as my community, I'm answering the questions through that lens, and this our community question through that lens. But we know that, like, you know, what's happening in Castleton isn't the whole story. We are a part of a whole county, we're part of a whole region. And so somebody's perception of economic opportunity might be different if they're thinking about the bigger region than just their very specific community. And so that's why we're asking these questions twice. So somebody will answer, you know, or select their top 5 economic and community development priorities for their specific community, and then again for the county. I think that will give us better data locally and as a whole. So as I said, McPherson County is about a year ahead of us in this process. They just finished year 2 survey. And so what we've been able to see is the year 1 results from their process. And so this is a snapshot from Lynn's board's report, the result of the survey. We asked the open-ended question, what makes our community feel special, or what makes our community special? We're excited about the answers to that question because we know that it's different for everyone, but also that there are some themes that will likely emerge. And something we've been talking about with our partners and internally for many years is getting clear about what's the narrative, what's the story we tell about ourselves in our community, on our local specific communities, but also as a whole of Reno County. And so we think these answers will help us better capture answers, data that will help us write that story that hopefully everyone can relate to. Another result we'll get from this that I'm really excited about is an open-ended question for who do you consider kind of the most admired leaders in your community. I think this is where we know there are so many people who are quietly or not so quietly practicing leadership in every neighborhood block of Reno County, and they may not be the people who have a title with a position that says they're a leader or an authority. How can we help lift up the names of those people who are doing that, who are practicing leadership, and people are noticing it and elevate them? So we will have these answers again for each community report and then Reno County as a whole. This is also a snapshot from Lindsborg of kind of their prioritized priorities and their metrics, as well as their economic perceptions. What each community report will get is their color bar, which is their own area's answers, and then the shaded gray bar is the county as a whole. So you can see kind of this difference or similarities in between like these snapshots of each community. And again, the idea is to capture what are people paying most attention to that will tell them whether progress is being made, and ultimately whether that gives them some sense of trust and hope and belief and desire to reinvest in their community because they see something happening. So right now, our ask of you is to help us promote the survey. Kind of the traditional ways of social media would be great, but also kind of personal or organizational emails out. You can set out paper copies. You can kind of on our behalf bribe your friends with local treats. That'd be great. But when you go to renosurvey.com, it's kind of a resource page with all the links and downloads and resources. So it's not just taking you to the direct, hyperlink of the survey. You choose your own adventure basically when you get there, though it's really clear. One of the things we have on that page is a request form. If you would like one of our staff members or committee members to come to one of your meetings of any type and take 15 minutes and give a brief overview of what we're doing, what we're up to and why, and then have people fill out the survey on the spot, that would be really helpful to us. One of the things that we've learned over time, but also McPherson County has told us that they learned in their first year, is that we can push out the survey link far and wide, but the most responses are going to come from a captive audience. So people carving out 10, 15 minutes for people to just take it on the spot. So if you can give us opportunities to come or do it yourself, that would be fantastic. The other things we're doing are, again, all the traditional things. There will be news stories, a press release. We'll have frequent social media, radio, newspaper. And then our intention is to be visible out in the community across the county. Kate Ireland has been working for us this year, and she's developed an outreach strategy to kind of make us visible out in the community and meet people where they are. Again, so for the next 6 weeks, you should see, I didn't show this, but Love Where You Live kind of out and about. Which might feel like deja vu for those of you who participated in Match Day or paid attention to that. You saw Match Day flooded across the county for about a month. So we're about to do that again with Love Where You Live, which we introduced softly at Match Day. Okay, so after we have gotten through early August, we've gotten the survey responses we need, which is about 125 responses minimum per Reno County community, or 400 for Hutchinson. So just that's those are the initial benchmarks we're working toward. We will, our partner, Innovation Economy Partners, will pull all the data. They'll draft these reports, and those reports will be the basis for resident gatherings. We want everyone to feel welcome at these resident gatherings. We want everyone to feel empowered to show up and be a part of these resident gatherings. Our intention is to host at least one resident gathering in each Reno County community, plus multiple within Hutchinson, because we know there are a lot of diverse communities and populations and neighborhoods within Hutchinson itself. We intend to start these resident gatherings after the fair with purpose, with gusto. So after the fair through October, we might be able to do a few before the fair, but as we know, things sort of slow down and attention turns to the fair in September. These will be facilitated meetings. So we'll use the same facilitation plan in each meeting, so we have some consistency. We will share the survey results. We'll let residents sort of process that together. We will share about county initiatives that are already happening that people might not be aware of, that are active across the county. For instance, like Mary Grace mentioned, there is a whole county housing assessment that's about to get underway. There's a whole child care task force for the county. There's a mental health task force. We want to educate the community about what's already happening and who's already doing it, and opportunities for people to engage in those initiatives. But we really want to create space for people to build relationships and dialogue, and make sense of the reports, to collectively identify priorities and what they want to make progress on in the coming year, in the coming 3 years, and take some time to brainstorm. What could we do? Many of you have heard me use the phrase lighter, quicker, cheaper. How do we get started when some of these issues that are going to come up feel so big and hairy and adaptive and long-term? Might feel like, it's going to take us 10 years to make progress on that. We want to break that down and say, no, there's something you can run experiments, you can take initiative to make progress on this in the span of the next 12 months. So how do we help people break that down and kind of put stepping stones in the gap, help them understand the next right thing. But then also connect the dots to, again, who else, what other communities identified similar priorities? Who else might be interested and have some energy around making progress? How do we make those connections, start to make those connections, and form collaboration? Many of you are familiar with the Kansas Leadership Center, and Community Foundation and our partners have really adopted this language, believing that leadership is an activity and not a position. I mean, referring to this earlier, we want the people with positions of authority to come to these meetings to fill out the survey. But we know that the authority figures, people in positions, elected positions or CEO positions, they can only do so much without the mobilization of the people. And the power that we have, and everybody believing that they can practice leadership and that they have some power to make progress, we want them to feel that through this process. And so we really want a diverse mix of people at these resident gatherings. As I said, we then hope that what comes out of the resident gatherings is this desire and kind of platform for collaborative action. We don't want to prescribe what that's going to look like yet, or who that's going to involve, but we do have some opportunities. We want people, again, to feel like they have some agency in their communities and in the Reno County as a whole, and to go beyond wanting things to change to helping be a part of things changing. So we want to inspire collaboration and those experiments and innovative ideas. We have 2 existing grant cycles that we're going to kind of remind you of, but also hope people will be inspired to take advantage of this year and in the next 3 years. The first are the Change Makers at Work grants. So these are small but mighty grants. There are 20, actually we are upping the amount this year. It's been $250 to $2,500 grants for the last near decade. We are upping that to $5,000 maximum this year, and we've increased our pool of grant funds. But these are small but mighty grants of residents coming together to build social capital, increase community pride and identity, and practice placemaking. We've seen some really cool and transformative projects with just a little bit of money across the county. Pretty Prairie, Arlington, Haven, they've all taken advantage of these grants over the years. Our future neighborhoods through the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, they've really done a lot to come together and use these funds to make, those experiments and catalyze progress. We didn't quite get the timing right on the initiative, the survey process and resident gatherings this year to have enough lead time because those grants are going to be due around October 4th. But because those have been active in our community for so long now, we hope people will take the opportunity and kind of take initiative there to use those if there are smaller projects that feel appropriate. The others that I'm sure you all are aware of are the Fund for Reno County grants. These grants are open year round. We have an open cycle. You could apply today. But we want to intentionally inspire collaborative projects to fund starting in January 2025. So the reports will be done in the fall. We'll officially launch them late November and kind of publicly share them. We want to put some resources behind the projects that are identified. I say the Fund for Reno County because that's the fund that is the unrestricted fund for Reno County that the Community Foundation has to advise on. But we will also take what comes out of these reports and share the opportunities and the projects with other funders in the community, with other funders in the state, in the region, with donors, to really inspire philanthropy to put resources behind these projects. We anticipate that there'd be a range of $5,000 to $25,000 projects that we always say, and we'll know more later in the year and kind of get a sense of this, but that we're open to larger grant proposals too. But these are the Hutchinson Community Foundation's resources to put behind projects. Through this whole process, again, partners, what we hope that you will come alongside us to do is to help us get survey responses so that we can really capture as diverse a snapshot of the perceptions of our communities as possible. When we get to the resident gatherings, we hope you'll help us convene diverse residents for these gatherings and that you'll participate as well. We hope that you'll be curious and listen to what the residents say, what these reports tell us in the end, and that you'll stay open to possibilities and kind of what might come when we work together and we really listen to each other. I'm going to ask you to save the date now for November 21st at the Fox Theater. we haven't named it yet, but our intention is to host kind of a progress and people party to celebrate all of the change makers in our community and this process and kind of reveal it. We'll make the change makers at Work grants awards that night. We will share the kind of final results of this process, and we will kind of formally announce the requests for proposals for the Fund for Reno County, kind of with this as a guideline. And we hope it's just fun. So just know we're planning ahead for that. So that's what I have to share with you today. And I want to pause and just open up if anybody has any questions, or if any of my colleagues, you want to chime in with anything I've forgotten.
Hi, Carrie.
Hey, Kate.
Maybe you can speak a little bit, since I'm involved in the outreach, speak a little bit toward reaching some of the youth in the county.
Yes. So our goal is for 20% of our responses to come from people under 20 or 20 and under. They are the future. I mean, that's cliche, but also true, right? We want to capture what the youth have to say. How are they feeling here in this community? And to what Melissa said, you know, how can we know how they feel about this community now, so we know what steps we need to take to make them think, consider, be inspired to consider living here long term or coming back here, and feeling that attachment to the community. So we're interested in opportunities to come to talk to youth specifically and have them fill out the survey, but also do at least one of the resident gatherings focused on youth so that their voice is elevated, and that they can collaborate with each other. We also have a youth philanthropy council internally that we will empower and kind of leverage to reach their networks. But that's going to be really important for this process, to have a good, healthy engagement by and voice from the youth. So we're open to ideas there.
Thinking about that, and I don't know if this is the right time to say this or not, but USD 308 is hosting enrollment on July 30th. So I don't know if you guys had thought about or talked about having a booth. It's all going to be, if we're focused on teenagers, at the high school. That would be a really good opportunity to collect those surveys too. And I don't know if you want to incentivize it. That usually helps with teenagers to get them to fill things out, but that fits within the window, I think, of when you said you were wanting to close the survey.
Yes, great idea. Thank you. We had not gotten that on our radar yet, I don't think. It's super helpful.
Yeah, I might piggyback. This is Kelby. I might piggyback off what Melissa said, and Reno County Education Co-op has some things going on too. So if that would help touch some of those other outlying areas like Haven and we could abruptly leverage our CEC. And then I'm headed to a different meeting too, but I would like to know if the recording is going to be sent or if it will be available to watch.
Yes. Yeah, we'll make it available. I believe, Wendy, we could just put a link to it on that resource page, right? On if you go to renosurvey.com, which redirects to our website, we can put it there, but we will send it out to everyone who registered.
We can also get the NAACP youth involved and the Youth City Council. I'm sure they would love to have like a listening session about Love Where You Live at any of their upcoming youth city council meetings.
Thank you, Esmeralda.
Yep.
Carrie, I heard you say that the goal for communities is 125 survey responses, 400 in Hutchinson. And it surprises me every time I hear that because it doesn't seem like a very large number. Can you explain how you got to that goal?
Yeah, so 125 is kind of muted myself. 125 is kind of the minimum to have some sense that we have a good snapshot of a community. for data accuracy. 400 for Hutchinson is 1% of the population. So that sounds really small, and we would shoot for way more than that, but that feels doable. And we will not stop it. If we reach those numbers, we'll keep going. But we have specific benchmarks within each community that we're looking for. Let me pull that up. As I said, 20% of each community we hope is responses from people 20 and under. Let me pull up my other piece. We also want, based on our actual demographics in Reno County, we want at least 35% of our responses to come from people who have less than a college education. We want between 12 and 18% of our responses to come from minority, non-white population. So we're starting from the place where, 125 responses in Nickerson is about 10% of the population. So it looks a little different. It sounds small, but when you think about percentage of population and what we're going for, that's kind of how we got there.
Thank you.
Gary, I was assuming that when this launches, there will be links that we can share within our organizations and to push it out and promote it. And that will come to a lot of the players on this call.
Yes. So that's all the links are there at renosurvey.com. So you can use those now. They're active. Again, the links to the English version and the Spanish version are different. So if you have a mix of your population that you're sending it to, you might send them directly to renosurvey.com rather than the direct link to the survey. But we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you all to share. We also have social media tiles, the logo available, that one pager, the print PDF copies at renosurvey.com. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you're excited. I know everybody has their screens on, but I do hope this process is heartening to you, is a chance for our community to share really how they feel and to kind of give them that opportunity to reflect on their feelings about their place, and that it will really spark meaningful dialogue and collaboration on the end of it when we give people those opportunities to come together. So thank you all for being here today. We will follow up with those links and the resources, and just reach out to me or our communications officer, Wendy Skellinger, anytime you have questions along the way, or ideas for us. We're all ears. So have a great rest of your Friday. And I hope that this weekend you can do something that helps you even more so love where you live.
A lot of activities downtown, Smallville, everybody take part.
Yes, there's no shortage of things to do this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you all.